New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez chairs the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and joins us now from Capitol Hill. Senator, thank you very much. Well, we're told that Putin has privately been telling the president he knows who was responsible for that attack, and Lavrov has been talking to Secretary Kerry, but now you've got Vladimir Putin writing this op-ed. How did it make you feel?
Well, look, it turned my stomach because to read all of the elements of Putin's op-ed, to suggest that, he has a problem with American exceptionalism, to believe that he is the conduit to the path to peace when he has been the obstacle at the United Nations, not just to our efforts, but the Brits, the French, and other, to try to get a peaceful resolution to this, as the patron of Assad in Iran, supplying him with tons of weapons. I found it just incredible, and even to suggest in other comments that you can't expect Syria to unilaterally disarm. Well, the giving up of chemical weapons is certainly not to be believed as part of the armament of any country. It's internationally prohibited. So I just found it so, incredibly unbelievable. But, in a democracy, we allow views like that to be heard.
Now, do you believe that Secretary Kerry is doing the right thing in going ahead with the talks, sort of putting that to the side and choosing to pocket, if you will, the serious private statements that they say they've had from both Putin and from Lavrov?
Well, look, I think that it would be foolish to slam the door on the possible opportunity for diplomacy to achieve a goal that if the Russians are serious about, would ultimately go beyond degrading Assad's ability to deliver chemical weapons, would deprive him of the chemical weapons, which for years he said, and until just before the last few days, said never existed in his possession anyhow. So that would be a positive development. But we've got to see what, in fact, is meant by this proposal. Is there going to be a binding Security Council resolution? Are we going to simply trust the word of Assad? Just because even if he signs on to the chemical weapons treaty ban, there is no enforcement mechanism under the ban. You're back at the United Nations. So we have to see how serious the proposal is and whether it has enforcement mechanisms as part of it.
My reporting is that the Russians are holding firm against enforcement mechanisms. Do you have any concerns that the administration might waver and go soft on this, or should they hold firm that there has to be some kind of military enforcement mechanism if this is real?
Well, there are different forms of enforcement enforcement provisions. A Chapter 7 resolution at the UN obviously provides for the use of force if the resolution is violated. Chapter 6 would provide for sanctions, which would be significant. But there has to be some way in which, other than the word of Assad saying that he is going to subscribe to the treaty, which has no actual enforceable elements to it, there's got to be more than that. So, I don't want to foreclose any other possibility, but I do want to see an effort that is real at the end of the day. Otherwise, Assad bought time. There's no guarantee that he totally comes clean through all of his chemical weapon sites, and we have to see what's the plan for destruction of them and what's the time frame that's involved. And so the only way to assure that, it seems to me, is to some form of Security Council resolution, because then if he violates it, you're back in the Security Council. The Russians find themselves in a much more difficult position, and the world then convenes and says, well, wait a minute, we gave diplomacy an opportunity, he finally came clean, and he's not moving forward.
Now, is Putin the real winner here? Because he is driving all of this. It was his proposal. We're responding to it. His ally, Syria, Assad, might end up staying in power because of this, because once they get rid of the chemical weapons, they'll say, what more do you want from us? So is this a ploy to get Assad, to keep Assad in power and to really diminish the effectiveness of the opposition?
Well, I believe, first of all, the only reason that the Russians pulled this card at the last minute is because there was a credible use of military force. And they believe that not only were we going to attack the ability of Assad to degrade and deter his delivery systems of chemical weapons, but that in doing so, we actually affected his overall capacity in Syria to sustain himself in power. And for them, that's not an equation they want. So they probably think Assad can sustain himself without chemical weapons, give up the chemical weapons. And to some degree, if we did strike against Assad, they might be concerned of who gets access to those chemical weapons and what it means to them as Russia, even though I think at some time they may have been helpful to Assad in years past in this regard. So there's a lot of variable factors here, but at the end of the day, the Russians must be also put to the test. And if after you offer the opportunity and the opportunity ends up being hollow, I think the Russians pay a consequence. So we'll see how those dynamics play out. It's not fully a upside for the Russians.
Thank you so much, Senator Bob Menendez.